as corrupt. The narrative is compelling, but it's based on untrue allegations. The falsehoods and innuendo have been plastered in the national press. Senior CBSA officials have distanced themselves from us. Nos carrières ont été suspendues.
Our careers were suspended. Our lives upset.
From Miss Simmons, someone I do not know. I hope you go to jail. Amongst other things, you are corrupt, greedy, a sorry excuse for a human being. I hope you are ashamed. I hope you seek redemption. These are all based on falsehoods. There was no cozy relationship, no conspiracy, and no fraud involving Mr. Utano or myself. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to finally present the truth, address the extraordinary allegations that have been raised by Bottler AI, and to show the facts that you have been misled. Je commencerai par vous présenter.
I'd like to begin by presenting the context of ArriveCan.
National mobile application for Canadians to re-enter the country. CBSA's contracting authority, the finance branch, authorized the sole source, and PSPC negotiated the terms and authored the final contract. Our innovation team was given less than 5 days to pursue options. 6 companies were evaluated. GC Strategies and Deloitte were the only vendors willing and able to satisfy the requirements in the narrow time frame. I was not involved in the GC Strategies vetting. 2 options were presented to my superior, then Vice President and Chief Information Officer Min Doan. Min Doan specifically rejected the Deloitte as an option. Deloitte had in fact been my preference. As a result of the direction given to proceed by Mr. Doan, GC Strategies was recommended to the contracting authority. As the Director General of Innovation, the decision was never mine to make. Pendant 12 mois, j'ai dirigé.
During 12 months, I led the team developing and scaling ArriveCan until May 2021. And during my involvement, all task authorizations provided to GCS were met on time and within budget.
I provided a costing for ArriveCan, and it was $6.3 million. This was shared with my colleagues and my supervisor. En ce qui concerne Bottler AI,
with regard to Bottler AI, their allegations are unsubstantiated.
This committee, they began to collapse. They told this committee they believed their chatbot would make them $26 million a year. Their disappointment has turned into a campaign of baseless accusations against Mr. Utano and I. The facts are, in 2019, Dalian and Karadix competed fairly for a general services IT contract. On November the 19th, 2019, I received an unsolicited, jointly branded GCS and Bottler proposal for Bill C-65. The HR department was the client and the decision maker for the work with Bottler. A feasibility study was asked for by CBSA that had 6 parts. There was never a pilot in scope. My VP instructed me directly to help them deliver an executive appropriate presentation. I advised my VP that CBSA would use an existing contract. The proper contracting processes were followed. PSPC has validated this. I have had an unblemished reputation in the public service for 23 years. I have competed openly for every single promotion I have ever received, starting at an entry-level position as a student. My actions have always been guided by a commitment to the public interest. The allegations have been painted are incomplete, inaccurate, and have done a misleading narrative. The reality, along with the accountability of the leadership of the CBSA, is that the result of my reputation and the careers of good public servants are being shattered. Je vous remercie.
I thank you, members of the committee, for allowing me the opportunity to share the facts openly and honestly.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Mr. Utano, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of this committee, je vous remercie de m'avoir donné l'occasion.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to answer your questions regarding the Arrive Canada study, and most recently, allegations made by Bottler AI regarding work undertaken during my time at CBSA.
It has been conveyed to this committee that I committed wrongdoing. I have not. My reputation and career have been attacked and damage inflicted on both me personally and professionally. Today I will present the facts. I will speak clearly and honestly about all my actions. I welcome transparency and accountability. We have provided a brief to this committee with evidence that will substantiate all statements and facts outlined below. Regarding ArriveCan, at the onset of COVID pandemic, I was an executive director at CBSA responsible for the prototype design division that included the Mobile Center of Excellence team. In early March 2020, the Public Health Agency of Canada, PHAC, asked CBSA for urgent assistance to develop technical capabilities needed for contact tracing at the border. No such capabilities existed at that time. The technical team was responsible for assessing technical solutions needed to fill this operational response on an extremely urgent timeline. Option analyses of this magnitude typically take months. We were given less than 5 days. The technical team assessed 6 in total. Internal development was determined as not feasible, given a shortage of skill set, capacity, and the urgent timeline. An outsourced option was deemed necessary. The 2 possible outsourced options were presented, the Deloitte and GC Strategy solutions. Both options were sent to the Vice President and Chief Information Officer, Min Doan, for consideration and decision. At a team meeting, we were informed that the Deloitte solution was discounted, leaving the only option of mobilizing the GC Strategy solution. The ArriveCan app and all its technical components evolved considerably throughout the pandemic from the original concept design. It was created through the collaboration of CBSA employees and over 19 technology vendors, one of which was GC Strategies. The entire agency's pandemic contact tracing response cost $55 million. This is not all technology development. The breakdown of the spending is published information, and I've included it again for reference. All GC Strategies task authorizations related to ArriveCan followed all procurement guidelines. Contracting was overseen and managed by PSPC. My responsibility remained to ensure the technology requirements were met and delivered on time, and they were. I will now address the separate issue of Bottler AI. To be clear, Bottler AI did not work on ArriveCan and in no way was part of the ArriveCan program. My involvement with the Bottler feasibility study was limited. On September 27, 2021, shortly after I assumed the role of Acting Director General, I received an email from Ms. Dutt with a CC to my team. The email raised 2 issues, a late payment to Bottler from the prime contractor, Dalian Keratics, and the second was discontent regarding a private partnership they established specifically around the collaboration between Bottler AI, Dalian Keratics, and GC Strategies. The CBSA responded to Ms. Dutt within 24 hours. This included resolution to the delayed payment and we reminded Ms. Dutt that the contract between CBSA and Dalian Keratics had contractual privacy clauses preventing us, CBSA, from discussing private or proprietary matters with subcontractors. Ms. Dutt's letter raised no concerns and no allegations about the CBSA or any of its employees, past or present. In fact, on a follow-up email the next day, Ms. Dutt praised the good relationship and positive experience she enjoyed to date working with the CBSA and its employees. Moreover, she expressed her appreciation for the prompt action, and the matter was considered closed. In December of 2021, CBSA's Human Resources Branch, the client for the work, requested the cancellation of the Bottler AI task authorization, citing capacity and staffing issues. The TA was canceled, and I had no further contact with Bottler AI. I will close on a personal note. I have worked in the technology field for over 24 years, where I've dealt with highly sensitive files, operations, Five Eyes partnerships, and both domestically and internationally. I understand the seriousness of ensuring that my actions remain bound to the professionalism demanded of a position in the federal public service. I have always upheld these values. Thank you for your time, and I'm willing to answer any questions you may have. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Utano. Ms. Kusi, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. On November 4th, 2019, 2 young entrepreneurs, Ratika Dutt and Amir Morv, were contacted by Christian Firth of GC Strategies regarding a Government of Canada project. On November 30th, Firth stated, "I had a great chat with Cameron from CBSA, and they will act as fast as they can to get you a commitment." Over the course of our interactions, Firth repeatedly stated that the CBSA was very interested, said Ms. Dutt. Firth repeatedly communicated that Cameron MacDonald would need to receive benefits as consideration for his role and influence in bringing Bottler, their company, to the Government of Canada. Firth stated that MacDonald had then CBSA President John Oswoski's ear, and that for Cameron, it's more than credit. I just want to be sure that he's taken care of. The principals met with MacDonald several times. During a meeting called by McDonald on January 22, 2020, at the Marriott Spin Cafe, McDonald confirmed over drinks with the principals first statements regarding implementation of Bottler as a CBSA pathfinder for the entire Government of Canada-wide implementation. During another in-person meeting called by McDonald on February 6, 2020, which was also attended by Antonio Utano and others, McDonald provided precise instructions and wording on how to pitch Bottler to the President to ensure success. During the period, McDonald continued to provide intelligence to Firth on internal high-level executive meetings regarding Bottler that were above his pay grade. McDonald provided direct instructions to be provided via Firth to Bottler and the principals in order to guide interactions with other CBSA employees. McDonald also assigned work delegated to him by his superiors to Bottler for completion at the last minute. Firth regularly asserted McDonald's influence and insisted that Bottler provide whatever was asked by the CBSA, as Cam has a very big stick and can get what he wants. They know where he's going in the organization and how fast. Over multiple years of interactions with both Firth and the CBSA mid-management, it has become evident that conscious efforts are made by both parties to isolate and control the flow and narrative of information to the CBSA executive leadership. In this instance, the leadership is defined as the agency's president, vice president, and C-level executives. As early as November 2019, while Firth was actively communicating messages from McDonald to Bottler, as discussed earlier, Firth stated that the Vice President, Doan, doesn't know that we've been communicating back and forth with Cameron. Firth, on behalf of McDonald, intervened on multiple occasions when Duff communicated important information with Oswoski that was targeted at the ministerial and deputy ministerial levels. Imagine that you are a young entrepreneur. You've been promised by your contact that the sky is the limit. Your concept, your technology can be implemented across the entire Government of Canada because he knows the man. The man works together with your contact to create magic. The man who has contacts, who knows what he wants. The man who owns a chalet. Or is it a cabin? Picture now that you enter into what you thought was a contract. You'll work hand in hand to create your idea across government. And what do you have to worry about? It's the Government of Canada. But suddenly, things start to go wrong. You complete some work. You complete some more work. But you don't get paid. So you inquire. You do a little digging, and you're concerned by what you find. So what do? You do the right thing. You file a complaint, because when you file a complaint, it will be taken seriously. It will go through the right channels, and it will be addressed, because it's the Government of Canada. Or will it? So, Mr. Tanu, what did you do when you received the first misconduct report?
Thank you for the question. Mr. Chair, the email from Ms. Dutt on September 27th was not a report, but rather an email. And it raised two issues, as I indicated in my opening statement. One was a delayed payment matter, and the other one was a concern about Bottler's relationship with their partnership between GCS, Dalian Craddox, and Bottler AI. Nothing more. There were no allegations. I've actually provided the email in this package for reference. In fact, I was aware of the email when it first came in and knew that my team was addressing it. And within 24 hours, we successfully resolved the issues. So much so that Ms. Dutt sent a follow-up email, which I also included in this package, the next day, expressing her gratitude and giving the nature of the email and the prompt resolution. It wasn't necessary to forward it to my superiors or Ms. Gorman.
Then why, Mr. Utano, is Ms. Dutt saying otherwise now, that this was the first instance of her submitting that misconduct report in September of 2021, which apparently you turned a blind eye to?
So, first, I'd like to address the turning the blind eye. That's not true. The facts are right here in the briefings.
Did you escalate it when you received that report? Did you bring it to the attention to the senior office? Pardon me, to the vice president, based upon the procedure as outlined in the Senior Office of Internal Disclosure.
We are basically out of time unless you have a very quick yes or no. We'll have to get back to it.
There were no allegations in the email.
Thank you, Mr. Utano. Mr. Jawari, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. McDonald, as a Director General of BTID, can you explain very briefly what is your role, or what was your role?
As Mr. Chair, the role, do I have to click the button?
No, you're okay.
The role had recently been created. There was a reorg in the IT branch, and they decided to go through with the reorg during the pandemic. Essentially, I had the responsibility for cloud functions. I had the responsibility for the Mobile Center of Excellence. I had the responsibility for a prototype and innovation section, and I had enterprise architecture, amongst others.
Did that role entitle you meeting with vendors?
Yes, but definitely part of my role. CBSA is a mainframe shop. It's very old technology, and I was required to meet with vendors for new technologies.
Can you tell me when was the first time you met with GC Strategy?
The first time I ever met GC Strategies, the first time would be almost 2019, late 2018, possibly early 2019.
Circumstances around that meeting?
Mr. Firth would have requested a meeting to talk about my business priorities and see what work was going on. I also, Mr. Firth would send different packages of partnerships that he had been fostering throughout private sector.
Seems you had a relationship with GC Strategies.
I had no relationship,
Okay,
Mr.
so
Chair.
it seemed there was a communication, there open communication between your office and GC Strategies partner around the fact that they could come visit you and ask you what your priorities are, and they share what it is.
Mr. Chair, I met with IBM. I met with Microsoft.
Yeah,
I met
I'm not
with-
interested on those. I'm
Yes,
interested in
I
GC
had
Strategies.
I had open interactions with many vendors.
Okay, can you tell me when was when your similar interaction started with Dalian and Cortex?
Around August 2019, Caradix won a fair and competitive contract.
And that was the first time that you had an interaction with them.
I may have added interactions throughout my career with Dalian and Caradix, but there was no business that I'm aware
What
of.
was your role in the I believe $21.1 million open contract that was given to Dalian and Cortex?
I was just the director general. There was a procurement team and a technology team that would have done all of the requirements and assessment and worked with our procurement team at CBSA. Who would
Did
have
you
worked with
recommend
the SBC.
Dalian and Cortex to the HR or to CBSA?
No, I have no role
That's
in the
fine.
procurement.
What was your when did you become aware of Butler AI?
Christian Firth sent me an email about Bottler AI on November the 19th.
Okay.
It was a proposal that he submitted, jointly branded, with a proposal in it to do a pilot.
Thank you. Is it customary for you to receive, or any department to receive, unsolicited
All the
proposal?
time. Mr. Chair, we receive unsolicited proposals from the private sector all of the time. Mr. Firth and GC Strategies in particular, I would say 6 a year I would get them, but we get them from all types of
So
vendors.
can
And
you
during
tell
the
me how
pandemic,
would
we got
GC
more.
Strategies know that? Well, I assume they followed and they know about C65, but how would they know to put a proposal, unsolicited proposal, to you for the AI application?
I believe Mr. Firth was meeting with multiple departments. C65 was coming down across the entire government. I received an unsolicited proposal. My understanding is that they went to like 9 different departments and did the same thing. I couldn't tell you.
Okay, did you at any time guide GC Strategies or Butler AI partners in how to prepare for the presentation, or did you guide them at any time, a real-time basis, as they were presenting these?
Mr. Chair, I provided some evidence. I have a bilateral note from a meeting with my boss where I was told to meet with Bottler, and I was told to prepare them for an executive-ready presentation.
What does prepare them means to you, sir?
It means they should have an understanding of the CBSA. They should have an understanding of the government context. They should understand what the business problem is that the CBSA is trying to solve. And at the time when they were presenting, they did multiple presentations. On December the 6th, I was not there for the VP presentation. Min Doan told this committee that he did not follow up and he did not write to Christian Firth, but he did, and I can submit that email in writing to the committee. But after that, he told me that they were very green, that they presented themselves well, but they were long and they didn't present their technology.
Okay.
He had a problem with that. And I have
enough.
emails that I've submitted to
Did
the
you at
committee
any
that show
time
this.
guide either GC strategy or Butler to in any way embellish their resume to fit the profile that we've
No.
heard that repeatedly, that their resume was embellished, and GC strategy has acknowledged that. Was it at any time that you directly or indirectly communicated to GC strategy that we won Butler AI, and if their resume fits, the job is theirs?
No, in no time did that ever happen, sir.
Okay. What is a general IT supply and service agreement with Dalian and Cordex?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. At CBSA,
brief.
they had what was called omnibus contracts. So the reason why it was $21 million is it was supposed to last 4 or 5 years. Antonio and I started within about 6 months of each other. We were borrowing other people's contracts to get work done when we needed it. So we put in place our own contract. It was supposed to last 4 or 5 years. Dalian ended up winning that competition competitively. It was out on the street for vendors to bid on. And that's why that contract was around.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald. Mrs. Vignola, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. McDonald, in your opening remarks, you said you would have preferred Deloitte that was already doing business for the Government of Canada in terms of procurement. In the email written to Mr. Douane in the month of November 2023, you wrote that you found a Montreal-based company and you'd contacted GC Strategies to assess the options and go forward. My understanding is that subsequent to Mr. Firth's emails that you made a sales pitch to Butler, or did you find Butler? And Mr. Chair, I was not there in 2023. I was already at Health Canada. When I wrote the email to Mindong, it was because I'd been asked for help for his attendance at this committee a year previously.
On October the 27th, 2023, a member of his inner circle called me and m'a appelé pour dire que Kelly Belanger
Called me to say that Kelly Belanger and Mindong had been discussing that they'd said the country that had been my decision to choose GC Strategies. August 28th, 2023, I got a call from Mindong, and he said that Minister Mendocino wanted somebody's head on a plate and said he didn't know if it would be the CFO, Mr. Moore, or him, the CIO of the department. And then he said he would say it was me to the committee. And I said it was not my decision. I had not taken the decision, that I had put 2 options in front of him, and I would answer if he said such a thing to the committee. Mr. Dung fell ill and did not appear before the committee. The Monday morning, I said to my former supervisor, Nancy Hamzawi, that I had been threatened. Sorry, I don't know the word in French. She said I should tell this to my supervisor. Tuesday morning, I said to my supervisor, and at that time it was the Associate Deputy Minister, Heather Jeffries. Heather Jeffries called the CBSA to say that I had been threatened. And she met with me afterwards and told me I should not talk to CBSA nor to Mindong because of what was going on, that CBSA was aware of what was going on and that I should withdraw and stand alone, and that's what I did. So the fact that there was 2 weeks when Mr. Mindong told this committee that he had not played any role in the decision-making. You said he's wrong. He was the one who imposed GC strategies. You wanted Deloitte. That was a lie said to the committee. Everyone knows we have a team in back of us. It was his decision to take, not mine. I can also confirm with other people, because when he took the decision that Deloitte wouldn't be it, he said it was because the president said nobody can work with Deloitte because of a project called CARN, which wasn't going well. So the evening he made the decision, I called the Deloitte partner to explain they had not been chosen because of problems with CARM. That evening, he told me that my colleague, Sandy Kiriskakis, who is the main lead for data at CBSA, had said the same thing. She had wanted to go with Deloitte too. In your email of November 19, well, in Christian Firth's email, actually, which he sent to you 19 November 2019, he calls you by your first name. Is it because he already knew you? And if so, where had you had contacts before 2019? I had contacts with Mr. Firth in 2009. I had not been in contact with him from 2009 until around 2018, 2019. That's the first thing. The second thing, almost everyone calls me Cam or Cameron. That's normal. I'm someone rather informal with not just him, but everyone. Everyone calls me Cam. In your opening remarks, you said that you had not participated in the review of the decision on GC strategies. Who did participate? Mr. Lutano was the team leader, and he had a director for cloud, also a manager from the Mobile Expertise Center, and there must have been some 5 or 8 other technicians and developers who conducted the analysis of products or companies or solutions that might be implemented. And the final solution to go with GC strategies was Mr. Dong who took that decision? Yes, he took the decision to go with GC strategies. He gave me the permission to develop the solution. He knew that there were only 2 in the 5 days we had to make the decision. If he had not wanted to go with that decision, he could have asked for a time.
Mr. Johns, please.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for both of you for your testimony. No, I just want to be clear from the outset, this committee is not trying to destroy anybody's career, especially hardworking public servants. But we need to get to the bottom of this, and we want to make sure that situations like this don't occur again. Now, Mr. Frith acknowledged that he mistakenly sent the Codex he sent Codex the wrong versions of Ms. Dutt and Mr. Morav's CVs, in which he inflated their experience. Mr. McDonald, he said he went and did a back and forth. Was it a back and forth with you before he altered the resumes?
Never, Mr. Chair. As the DG, I don't deal with any of the CVs or security clearances. It's done by a procurement team.
Well, I appreciate that. Codex submitted these documents, this altered resume, which Mr. Frith admitted to Public Services and Procurement Canada, and subsequently he received a task authorization to deliver Bottler software. To this extent that you're aware, would Ms. Dutt and Mr. Moore have been eligible to perform work for this task authorization had Mr. Frith not inflated their experience? And I'm giving Mr. McDonald that you know the alterations now that you've been following the committee, what took place.
I'm not aware of the particulars of the contract. I've been following these meetings, obviously.
Well, they had 7 years work experience, and suddenly it was inflated to
Mr. Chair, I don't believe
years.
that they would have qualified under the category.
Let me just pause.
Okay.
And I've got your time paused, Mr. Johns. We have apparently bells ringing right now, unfortunately.
Oh.
I assume we have 25 minutes. Members, can we? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to double check, but if it is, can we have agreement to continue for till 5 minutes before vote time? Thanks. Oh, good Lord. Thank you very
So
much.
I'll go back to you, Mr.
Yeah,
McDonald.
I've got your time restarted, Mr. Johns. Don't worry.
Great. So, would they have been eligible to perform the work for the task authorization given, if they had revealed the true experience that they put on their resume and sent once to Mr. Frith?
I don't believe so under the categories that Mr. Firth presented them in. I don't validate that. That would have gone through PSPC. It would have gone through CBSA procurement and a procurement team. I didn't see the CVs. I've never seen the CVs.
Okay. What gaps does this reveal in the process? Just trying to fix things here moving forward.
Yeah, I guess like when I think about this from a technology standpoint and a user of contracts, I would think that some of the gaps that may exist would be what Mr. Wood brought up, that if you don't have the people attest to their CVs when they're submitted, then it is possible that something could be done in between their submission from
Okay.
themselves
What
to
about
the government of Canada.
Do you believe CBSA, as the purchasing organization responsible for assessing, the contract securities programs funding, should have a role in that?
So the CBSA would have gotten this from PSPC. My understanding is that the CBSA does a secondary security check. They don't just take what PSPC gives them. So I don't think CBSA would have had any responsibilities in that regard.
Okay, given what you're hearing, and you've heard Mr. Frith's testimony last week, I assume that you heard that on Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that he's admitted to altering the resumes. You're quoted as saying, let Mr. Frith, let Kirsten do his magic in an email. Would you not send an email like that knowingly that he's altered resumes in a situation like this?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe I sent that in an email at all. I believe I read that for the first time in an article that was written that was written poorly. You might not be able to see this, Mr. Johns, but I took that article. I couldn't sleep, and I read out every single timeline that man quoted and represented it. And I just want to say to people, the CBSA did not. I'll stay here all day, Mr. Johns, so you don't need to worry about your time. We can give everybody 6 more minutes, okay?
No, it doesn't work like that.
We sat here. It was post-pandemic when we did any contracting at all.
Yeah.
When I was supposedly said that was February 2019, before the pandemic. I was talking about them being in a partnership, introduced to me as being in partnership and navigating through the complexities. I wasn't talking about anything nefarious. I wasn't talking about anything bad.
And I don't want to do that to you right now. I'm trying to fix this, and I'm really glad that you're getting a chance to tell your side of the story. Now, Ms. O'Gorman, she just wrote a letter to this committee. She's asked PSPC to temporarily suspend all CBSA contracts with GC Strategies, Cordex, Dalian. This is pretty serious. Would you agree that the CBSA would be sending a letter like this if it wasn't serious, if there wasn't concerns, real concerns that are being brought forward here? Now, I'm not talking about your involvement, but there has to be some substantial concerns. Do you not agree for Ms. O'Gorman to write this letter?
Mr. President, I guess the only question I would say is, what has CBSA learned in the last 2 weeks that they didn't already know? The CBSA had the email from September 27th that had no allegations. There wasn't a report of wrongdoing whatsoever. They sat here at this committee and didn't defend Mr. Utano or myself.
Okay.
I would think the CBSA should speak for themselves.
Sorry, that is our time, Mr. Johns. Perhaps in your next round. Mr. Brock, for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. So to both Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano, although you've not been sworn to tell the truth, when you attend committee, part of parliamentary privilege, there's a component that you are required to tell the truth. You are required to give us fulsome answers. So I just wanted to put that on the record because I know you have legal counsel present. Both of you have independent legal counsel, is that correct?
We have legal counsel.
Yes. Is it from the DOJ or is
No,
it
not
private
private.
counsel?
We
No.
weren't provided
Not
with
allowed.
any support from the federal government when this happened whatsoever, so we
Okay.
had to go get our own support.
That was probably a very wise move on your part, because not only is the Auditor General expanding her review, which started off as ArriveCan, but because of the story from the Globe and Mail in early October, her concerns about the same players and the same government agencies, she's expanded that review. But more importantly, the RCMP are investigating, not ArriveCan, they are investigating the CBSA, all the employees, all the executives, including both you, Mr. McDonald, and you, Mr. Utano, as well as other government agencies, the three companies at issue right now, GC Strategies, Dalian, and Coridex, and as to what truly transpired, as to whether or not there was some criminality. All right? So I can understand why you'd want to have counsel. So, putting that aside, you, both in your opening statements, you were very quick to impugn the credibility of the whistleblowers. I call them the whistleblowers, the brave two entrepreneurs from Bottler AI. And you were prepared to actually throw under the bus the press, and particularly the Globe and Mail. So I just want you to be aware, sir, because you use the phrase a lot. Well, these are allegations, and I'm here to tell the truth. I'm going to give you the facts. What you need to be aware of, sir, is that the Globe and Mail that started this investigation analyzed thousands and thousands of pages of documents released pursuant to access to information requests that came from the CBSA. Globe also reviewed extensive documentation compiled by the entrepreneurs themselves, including contracting records and audio recordings of their conversations with IT consultants, and both you, Mr. McDonald, and you, Mr. Utano. So we have hours and hours of conversations that are actually recorded. So in my view, these aren't allegations. This is fact. This is evidence. I haven't asked you a question yet, sir. Okay? This is my time, and this is how I'm going to frame the question ultimately to you. So I wanted you to be aware of that, sir. Okay? So when we go back to taking a look at why Bottler would have the need to record you, it's very, very clear early on when you take a look at all the stories, is they thought it extremely unusual that it was the CBSA, you in particular, sir, who sought them out, and sought them out not directly by yourself or one of your employees, but rather a middle person, Christian Firth from GC Strategies, because their work previous to this particular engagement was directly with the Department of Justice. They had civil servants, they reached directly out to Bottler, they did the work, they got paid. There was no middleman, no ghost contractor, like we like to refer to GC Strategies. So that I want to bring to your attention, sir. Now, you also claim that it wasn't you who initiated the concept of CBSA engaging with Bottler, that it was actually Firth's idea. So, you know, Firth testified last week. Firth is on record saying that it wasn't his idea, it was your idea, that you had researched it, and you wanted him to approach Bottler. So both sets of facts can't be true at the same time. You're saying something completely opposite. So who's lying to committee, Mr. Firth or yourself?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe Mr. Firth said that, and I think you can check his transcripts. I think Mr. Firth said that he reached out to Bottler after speaking to a number of CIOs around town. He had talked to me, and that he had understood that Bill 65 was important. At the time, there were news clips that CBSA had undergone a whole bunch of sexual harassment claims, and that's why I told him it was one of my priorities. I want to bring your attention, since everybody's
Thank you.
talking
Thank you. I
I'm sorry.
don't want to hear
I'm
about
gonna interrupt
anything
both
else,
of you,
sir.
'cause that is your-
You
that is our
answered my
time, Mr.
question. Is
Brock.
my time up?
Your time is up, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Mr. Baines, please, for 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano, for joining us today. You said you preferred Deloitte. I wanted to just sort of find out Mr. Doan's role in all of this process. He talked about, we asked him the question, he said I have a team that makes a decision. And then I asked how many people are part of this team. He said 1,400. So I'm like, or 1,400 people making this decision, and then he said, well, there's 6 directors, and then I think we've asked for some names on who those people are. So like, you preferred Deloitte, and what was the process used sort of to select GC Strategies, and what was Mr. Doan's role in all of that?
I can start. Maybe Mr. Utano can help me. They're doing
And or the team
no
that
worries.
he mentioned.
They're doing an assessment. There's 3 or 4 companies. Some of them big. Some of them we already worked with. The CBSA. Some of them are outsourced. Some of them are insourced. I see one floating to the top. I'm like, this isn't good. I also see about 100 requests coming in. It's the middle of the pandemic. That's why we were only given 5 days to do all of the options assessment. HR is coming, commercial's coming, travelers is coming. I wanted to bring in some Clydesdales, Deloitte, to be able to help out. I worked in evenings with Deloitte and the partner, and he put in an innovation team, and I told them the same requirements that the technical team had to work with. They came up with a concept, and Mr. Utano and his development team came up with a concept. On March 24th, he sent the options for GC Strategies, and I sent the option for Deloitte into Mr. Doan. Subsequent to that, I had a meeting with Mr. Doan where he told me that Deloitte was not an option because of CARM.
If I can add, Mr. Chair? Can I add to that? So the technical team, the Mobile Center of Excellence, looked at a lot of other options, but the theme around it was in-search capacity. They wanted to participate in the development. They saw that was a better approach and long-term, and so they worked in developing this concept, forwarded it to me, which then I forwarded directly actually to my CIO, Mendon, directly, and then left it there for decision and reference.
So when you said they, who's they?
The internal team?
Yeah.
So we had a technical team. We had a very small Mobile Center of Excellence team who was just getting off the ground and working in mobile. And so when this pandemic hit and Public Health Agency of Canada came to us in urgency requesting this this capability for mobile to deal with the contact tracing, we had to look for options. And so we went to our teams and asked them for options. This one surfaced as a viable option. It was based on a few things, more than a few, but security, the ability to provide a secured, protected V cloud, the ability to have secured resources, the skill sets, etc. And so when they took that all into consideration, a viable option that came to the top, if you will, was this proposal. And so again, I just forwarded it on to the CIO.
And then the CIO makes then who finally
Well, at
makes
that point,
the decision? Yeah.
the CIO would have had 2 proposals, 2 viable proposals. We didn't
Which
just look
were
at 2.
which were
Mr.
Deloitte.
Mr.
Your
Mr. Lake.
package, when
Yes.
everybody gets their packages, they'll see there's a Deloitte proposal that was sent by me. There's a GC Strategies proposal that was sent by Mr. Utano. I had a meeting with Mr. Doan afterwards. Mr. Doan told me that Deloitte was not an option. We talked about the fact that there would need to be a sole source contract. I have an email in my package on March 24th that I sent Mr. Doan letting him know that we would have to talk about methods of supply and suppliers because we didn't have any contracts in place at the time of the pandemic. And we would need resource categories that were outside of what we had within the Dalian contract. We had that discussion.
and what was
I
the response to that?
I was told, you need to do what you need to do. These are exceptional circumstances. I trust you to get it done. The whole thing was around whether or not we could have a release within a month or not.
In your time at CBSA on the many projects, did you use GC Strategies to source talent like all the time? You said they brought forward 6 at almost
So we used,
6 a year. Sorry, yes.
Mr. Chair, we used primarily our general IT services contract, which was with Dalian. Our understanding is that Dalian has subcontracted various resources through GC Strategies and other companies. I think my understanding is that's their modus operandi for the most part of how they work. So there were GC Strategies represented subcontracted resources working secret cleared within the CBSA when the pandemic hit. They were the ones working with the technical team that helped to develop the GC Strategies proposal.
And did you ever encourage
Sorry, Mr.
contractors
Baines,
to?
that's our
Okay,
time.
thank you.
Ms. Vignola for 2.5, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been listening and I'm trying to understand, how does procurement work and how did it work not just regarding Butler AI, but concerning Butler AI, and I think this is the best example I give. You have Daly and Coradix, who are essentially two fellows who find computer technicians, programmers, developers, network architects, and so forth, and they provide those resources to the Government of Canada. Then you have GC Strategies who do exactly the same thing. They go find experts in IT. Then you have one who uses the other to identify contacts, and every time there's a profile, there's, if someone gets a minimum, 1 to 15%, the other takes a minimum at 15%. And so we ended up paying money over money to get employees. Mr. Utano, I find this absolutely enormous. Mr. Utano, in your role and responsibilities, is there nobody in your team who could have been capable of developing an application? There's no specialization, and instead of paying out millions to 4 guys?
The answer is no. The level of complexity that was developed for the mobile application, and I just want to remind the committee that it has progressed to what you see today. It started with a basic digital form, and we were able to do that internally. It then progressed to pre-border, at-border, post-border, transactional, and holding on to very private information of travelers to Canada.
Thank you. So that capability didn't exist at the time. So did the government take action to fill that void? Because these applications are essentially the modern day tool and the tool of tomorrow. We have to stop paying out millions to one subcontractor after another.
It's our time, though. Perhaps you can say a bit for the next round with Ms. Vignola. Mr. Johns, please, for 2.5.
So, Mr. Utano, CBSA's policy on internal investigations into alleged or suspected employee misconduct requires you to provide any misconduct reports to your vice president, which was Ming Dong. Did you provide the September 27th, 2021 Bottler report to Mr. Dong, Internal Affairs, or any other supervisor?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to say it again. So the email from Ms. Dutt on September 27th that I received was not a report, but rather an email that raised two issues. One was a payment delay, and the second was a concern about Bottler's relationship with their partnership between GCS, Dalian Craddox, and Bottler AI. Nothing more. There were no allegations in that email. In fact, Mr. Johns, I provided the actual email in the package, okay. And if you look to tab 23, you'll see the actual email. And then I want to just confirm for the committee that I was aware of
Common Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates. Pursuant to SO Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Monday, October 17, 2022, the committee is meeting on the study of the ArriveCan application. Just a friendly reminder not to put earpieces next to the microphone as it causes feedback and potential injury to our interpreters. Before we start with our opening statements, just very quickly, order papers, papers that we've asked to be tabled here. Just a quick update. Mr. Firth has been in contact with our committee regarding bank records related to GC strategies. According to his accountant, because of payments are older, it's going to require 1 or 2 extra days to produce the information. We originally planned to have them already, but it's going to be a couple more days, which I think is acceptable. Second order for production of documents, different versions of the resumes of the 2 bottler witnesses have been received and are now just with translation. We're going to start with Mr. McDonald, I understand, for a 5-minute opening statement, then Mr. Utano. Please go ahead, Mr. McDonald.
Chair, honorable membre du comité parlementaire, I have submitted.
Dear members of this committee,
However, I'm going to add some words today because of some events of last night. There has been a concerted effort to portray Mr. Utano and myself as corrupt. The narrative is compelling, but it's based on untrue allegations. The falsehoods and innuendo have been plastered in the national press. Senior CBSA officials have distanced themselves from us. Nos carrières ont été suspendues.
our careers were suspended, our lives upset.
From Miss Simmons, someone I do not know. I hope you go to jail. Amongst other things, you are corrupt, greedy, a sorry excuse for a human being. I hope you are ashamed. I hope you seek redemption. These are all based on falsehoods. There was no cozy relationship, no conspiracy, and no fraud involving Mr. Utano or myself. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to finally present the truth, address the extraordinary allegations that have been raised by Bottler AI, and to show the facts that you have been misled. Je commencerai par vous présenter
I'd like to begin by presenting the context of ArriveCan.
the national mobile application